A little bit of table wine and some not so table watches, right? Today we're looking at watches that I never thought would have been considered hype watches. We're looking at, kind of like my guilty pleasures. We're looking at stuff that no one liked forever. And now all of a sudden, everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon, okay? Because cool is fucking cool. And I'm gonna tell you why Cartier's Panthère and Piaget's Polo are fucking cool. There's a lot of history on the table here, some stuff that, it's decidedly 80s, it's decidedly rich, it's decidedly decadent. These are the kinds of watches that were present when I think people were just putting blow on mirrors and just kind of, going nuts. I guess we'll start off here with the Cartier Panthère. The story of the Panthère, I suppose, really starts in 1905 with the inception of Cartier's Santos Dumont. Albert Santos Dumont, actually a famous Brazilian pilot, tapped his friend Louis Cartier to develop a wristwatch, which ultimately was named the Santos Dumont. It was Cartier's first wristwatch. It came out in 1911 officially, and that was about a solid decade before the Tank Normal. Years later, Cartier, as they do, over the decades, began to revise their design in a very similar fashion, like when they took their Benoit and made a Benoit Longuet, and then ultimately the Crash. They took their Santos and reimagined it. They reimagined it smoother. This is a very rugged, kind of very tough industrial watch. I've said before that it was the first wristwatch to have that juxtaposition of industrial design, with wealth, far before Gerald Genta's inception of the Royal Oak and the Patek Philippe Nautilus. So the Panthère was a reimagination of the Santos, but with softer edges. The Cartier brand speak on it was the Panthère bracelet moves smoothly like a panther. Now, what is the Cartier Panthère? It's actually a bracelet design foremost, very similar to Rolex's Presidential being the day-date, right? The Presidential is the bracelet and the day-date is the model. Cartier is having something similar going on here. There are Panthères that look nothing like what we know as a Cartier Panthère. This is a really good example. But they share that same bracelet construction and design language. That being said, we know what a Cartier Panthère watch looks like when we see one. One little piece of Cartier history that I think is important, and I think it's really interesting, telling about the creators of the movie Wall Street. Gordon Gekko famously wore the Cartier Santos Carré in solid 18 karat yellow gold. I have that watch in my personal collection. It is phenomenal. But the other guy in the film was Charlie Sheen in playing Bud Fox. And Bud Fox wanted to emulate Gordon Gekko and put on a solid gold Cartier Panthère. Now that may be meaningless to folks, but I do think that whoever was doing the set design or the clothing, the costume rather, I think they were smart enough that distinction was intentional, that the Carré was hard and rugged and tough, and the Panthère was kind of smoother, maybe softer, right, weaker. Very similar, I thought that Junior Soprano wearing a Date Just, even though he was the official boss, it meant something when Tony wore the Day-Date as his underling. Tony was the real president, right? I think it's cool when we see filmmakers or costume designers really be intentional, and I don't know, I think that's a really cool tidbit. Anyway, we've got two beautiful Panthères here. One is called a jumbo. What's rare is the configuration of the gold links, gold being on the outside. I love this watch. This watch is super rich. Rich is just a great word, right? It's elegant, it's thin, it's everything that I love in watches, right? It kind of reminds me of being maybe like a bit of a trust fund kid, kind of careless. Again, in the 80s, the Panthère was introduced in 83. Kind of careless, you really don't give a shit. It's just money, what's the difference? And you're wearing it kind of loosely and you're banging it against things while you're doing debaucherous behavior. That's what that watch reminds me of. And I think it's beautiful, it's elegant. This is a quartz watch, but I love it all the same. Actually, all the watches here are quartz watches. I think it's stunning. Its dial has aged from white to slightly ecru, stunning. But now here's another just wild watch. This is a Cartier Panthère Mini with this, I don't know, like fucking toasted dial. It looks as if it came this way from the factory. That's how perfect the aging is. It has medium brown tones, maybe even on the dark side around the edges, and it's kind of a vignette. And in the center, you have that ecru. This is truly a beautiful, beautiful watch. As I hold it in my hands, I don't know why this is for sale. This really should be saved for like my daughter or something. Maybe we'll just cut this. Maybe I just keep this watch. It is that beautiful. I love Cartier watches. The problem with Cartier watches is because they made so many of the watches, it is very easy to buy something very common. There's nothing wrong with that, obviously, right? Right is right. 40 millimeter day date is perfect. Even though there are a ton of them, it doesn't matter. But being a vintage guy, I love to see little nuance. Right? I love to see a rare bracelet. I love to see a patented dial. I love that stuff. So anyway, these are the 2 Cartier Panthères available right now in the Theo and Harris watch shop. Now, this is the OG, right? This is Piaget's Polo. I have one in my personal collection. This one is for sale in the watch shop. Just a stunning watch. The watch was announced in 1979. It was designed in this bizarre time in the world of watches, right? Even though I do think that Louis Cartier invented that juxtaposition of industrial design and wealth, you know, years before, Yves Piaget saw the world differently. He saw what Gerald Genta had done. He saw the industrial design revolution going on. Cartier saw it too with Aldo Cipulo, with the Juste Club bracelet. Rolex was seeing it. Talk about this watch in the next episode of In the Metal with the first gold Submariner, right? Everyone was seeing it. But Piaget did it in what I think is a truly unique and just a fashion of unparalleled brilliance and intelligence, okay? Piaget said, okay, I will react to the industrial design, but I will never do it in steel. This will be the height of ostentatious luxury. This is going to be something for all the folks, the rich folks that just can't see themselves wearing a Nautilus. It's a steel sports watch. I don't want nothing to do with that. I'm precious, right? And the truth is, guys, I mean, I'm wearing a Royal Oak right now, and it just happens to be on my wrist, but that's kind of how I feel, right? I gravitate towards the gold watches. I love the weight. I love how shiny they are. I wore my Polo this morning with a sweater and sneakers, kill shots to the fucking diner, right? I understand that human desire to have a little bit of flash or a lot bit of flash, right? And that's what Piaget stood for. They stood for something, you know, and it was different than what AP stood for and different than what Patek stood for. And whether you like it or not, it still did take a pair of balls. It took a real understanding of oneself and their own DNA to produce the Polo. So whether you like this watch or not, I love it. It's just fucking 18 karat bullion. The saturation in the gold is just remarkable. It's so rich. It comes with the original box. This is a phenomenal watch. I can guarantee you that these are rising in popularity and will continue to. They didn't make that many of them. There aren't that many great examples out there. And this is beautiful. This is just a beautiful, beautiful watch. I wear mine more often casually than I do formally, but again, most of you listening probably couldn't even imagine yourself wearing a watch like this, and I get it. I totally get it. But what I'll say to you is, you haven't tried one on yet. You know, you haven't given it a shot. You haven't looked at it from the perspective that I'm looking at it from. You know, it's not just garish. Sure, that's part of it. But we're living in we're living in a pretty garish culture. But it says something about watch heritage that it just really resonates with me. So that's it. These are the least hype watches that are becoming hype watches. And that's the truth. The Panthère is a symbol of taste and, like, you know, subdued wealth all over. It's all over TV, it's all over movies now, and it has been for a while, right? But it's rising in popularity, and the Polo is maybe the hottest watch of 2023 so far as I see it. I have more on the way. I'm buying them as I can find them, and Michael knows that's pretty true. These 3 watches are, of course, available in the Theo and Harris watch shop. So head on over, and if you're interested in buying one, remember to act quickly, because once it's gone for good.